I'm Justin Williamson, Senior Partner and Certified Financial Planner with Center for Wealth Management. There are a number of rules of thumb people talk about when it comes to their financial planning or investment planning. And one of those is the 4% rule. We're asked about this one quite often in terms of retirement planning and how much am I going to be able to take off of my investments when I get to retirement. And so the 4% rule is something that's been around for a number of years, probably is the most widely recognized rule of thumb in terms of those withdrawal rates when we get to retirement. So what it is, let's just talk about that first, is it's a theory based on research of historical market returns and how much you could potentially take off a particular portfolio without running out of money over a 30-year period of time. So they determined that, and this was based off of a portfolio that was roughly 50 to 60% stocks and 40 to 50% fixed income, bonds or cash. And what they determined was that based again on historical market returns, if you took 4% year one, so let's just say you had $1 million and you took 4% of that, you could take $40,000 a year off on year one. And then increase that each year for inflation. So let's just assume inflation averages around 3%. We would increase our $40,000 withdrawal in year two by $1,200 to $41,200. Okay? And we would repeat that process throughout retirement. By doing that and looking back on the returns of the market over a long period of time, they determined that you could have a 90% probability of success of not running out of money by withdrawing that 4%. There's some problems when we talk about that though, and the biggest of those are that it is a static rule, or it assumes a static withdrawal throughout retirement. And we know that that's generally not going to be the case. In working with hundreds, thousands of people that we've helped retire over the decades that we've been doing this, we know that no two cases look alike. There are going to be things that are unique to your particular situation that will cause you in some years to spend more than you do in others, okay? And some of those examples might be if I'm going to retire at 61 years old, let's just say, and I'm not quite eligible for Social Security, or I just don't want to collect right away, then I may need to withdraw more from my investments in the early years than I'll need to later on after I've begun collecting my Social Security benefits. So that would cause a naturally higher withdrawal rate in those early years compared to the withdrawal rate that I'll have when I get to the point of collecting the Social Security income. That's one. Number two is many times clients recognize that when they first retire, they're probably likely healthier than they're ever going to be. And so with that, they might want to do more in that first decade or even 2 decades of retirement than they will later on down the road. And so there's potentially more travel, more activities, whatever it might be. They're needing more funds to support the lifestyle and do the things that they want to do early on in retirement, more so now than they will be 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. Okay. Another consideration that comes into play that the 4% rule doesn't exactly address is longevity. And so if I'm convinced that everyone in my family, let's say, passed away in their 70s, why am I planning to age 95? I don't believe maybe that there's a good chance of having that nice long lifetime that I need to have my portfolio last for 30 years. So perhaps with that, I could be taking out a higher withdrawal rate today. So these are all things that we have to take into account are, again, what's going to be different from one year to the next? What is my appetite for risk when it comes to investing? So theoretically, the more aggressive I am, the more I might be able to withdraw off if things are performing well. But we also bring into our situation a bit more risk. Anytime we're taking on more risk with our investments, we also have to recognize that that could have an impact on our withdrawals. One bit of caution that I would give any client is if you're thinking that you'd like to have a higher withdrawal rate early on in retirement, and that you could easily adjust if we had a bad year in the market, let's say, things were going so well that you could pull back on your spending. Personally, I'm not sure I could. I'm not here to judge for everyone else whether they think they can or not. I think, though, many people find it hard once they've been living on, say, $5,000 a month to come back and say, okay, you know what, it's a bad year in the market, I only need $3,000. Many of us would struggle, I think, in that particular situation. So I want to be cautious about what that withdrawal rate is. our ability to adjust it as the situation demands, and from there come up with a reasonable strategy moving forward. So with all that, is the 4% rule perfect? No, but nothing is. Each individual case is going to require its own analysis to determine what the right withdrawal strategy will be. But it is a good gauge of, or a good starting point for what kind of income, directionally speaking, might you be able to take from your portfolio when you get to retirement. If you'd like to know more about your situation and what your retirement cash flow could or should look like, we'd be happy to help. Please give us a call. We look forward to talking to you soon.